a couple of years ago, same level of surprise on the winning side, and the only question is their pitching. Does it hold up, and do they add enough to it?
Because I'm a Capitals fan, I know the regular season doesn't matter. I mean, and I felt that way last year about the Cubs because the Cubs ran away and hid, and we got that going on now with the Nationals. We got that going on with Houston. Clearly, the Dodgers look like they may never lose again. I mean, haven't seen anything like this since the '84 Tigers, quite frankly. And, that's all well and good, but for a lot of those teams now, and maybe not so for the Red Sox because they're not a sure thing, and certainly the way you watch them play in April and May, so they're definitely not a sure thing at this point, and even the Astros losing Correa. But a lot of this is, how are we going to win Game 1 in October? I mean, once you've got the thing sewn up, you've sewn up nothing much beyond we get first pitch in our ballpark, and then you got to go out and win Game 1 because in these short series, the postseason's totally different now when it comes to how relief pitchers are used, how starting pitchers are used, how your bench is used.
Yes, and you look at what the Yankees did by creating that what looks to be a potentially monstrous bullpen, and it totally sets them up well for not just the regular season with the potential of catching the Red Sox, but for the playoffs. And it's something all contending teams should try to do. But I do think that there could be a little bit of a getting carried away feeling with, you have to have the bullpen, and that's the way you're going to win the World Series. Well, look at last year. Okay, the Cubs won the World Series. The Indians did not win the World Series. They were very close to doing it. But you look at the Cubs, you look at the Royals from the year before, and the Royals had a good bullpen too. Power arms are huge, and strikeouts are huge. But you have to be able to hit. The Cubs were a better hitting team last year than the Indians. The Indians, throughout the course of the postseason, outpitched the Cubs. The Mets, throughout the course of the 2015 postseason, outpitched the Royals, okay? But the Royals scored more than anybody. And I think the old pitching and defense adage gets tossed around a lot, and you look at the bullpen stuff and the Andrew Millers, and it just becomes, everybody gets so hyper-focused on the pitching and doesn't realize hitting can win you the playoffs. And you look at the Red Sox in the division series last year, and if you want to credit the Indians pitching, fine, but the best offense in baseball last year was the Red Sox, and they disappeared in that sweep against Cleveland. They were non-existent. And this year, it's even more important for the Red Sox to find some way to hit, or on the flip side, to have incredible starting pitching, because the offense is not the best in the majors anymore, and you're relying on Chris Sale, David Price, Craig Kimbrell, and if your formula is more decidedly going into the postseason, assuming the Red Sox get there, a pitching-based formula, whereas last year it was supposed to be hitting oriented and wasn't there. So I worry about the Red Sox offense, and I wonder if the pitching is enough. It's certainly that nobody has that 1-2 punch of Sale and Price, but is that going to get you through?
Well, then there's the whole trading deadline coming up here. Where are you going to go? Let's be honest. The Red Sox made their trading day deadline when they dealt for Sale, right? I mean, that was the big giveaway. That's what's put them into this position. If they didn't make that move last year, and let's say you had Wade Miley and we're trying to get by with that, they wouldn't be a first-place team and wouldn't have been for the last month. And now trying to get Price and Sale on track. I don't know if you buy in or don't buy in, but I like that a whole lot more than Jimenez and Miley right now, and I like that more than the Yankees without Pineda. There are some considerations to be made here to say the Red Sox on April 1st, we looked at them and gave them the all-bust team, right? They had the most talent. Now, whether that's going to win out or not, and the margin is so slim, I know one thing we weren't talking about in April was the Tampa Bay Rays, right?
No, and they've been a surprise, and the offense is, frankly, it's been better than the Red Sox, but that's been a lot of teams. The Red Sox are good at getting on base. The problem is driving the ball. They don't have the home run power, and you're starting to see more of it lately from Dustin Pedroia and Hanley Ramirez, and realistically, if the Red Sox offense is going to improve, most of that does have to come from within, but third base has been a very clear position of need for the Red Sox. And look, you're right. Going into the year, and I think still looking at the division, we said the Red Sox were the best team in the division. Did the Yankees even the gap? Maybe. yes, the Red Sox did spend their trade deadline bullet, their trade bullets previously, and it's not just the sale deal; it's all of it. It's since Dombrowski's been here, it's the Kimbrel trade, it's the Tyler Thornburg trade, the Carson Smith deal. They didn't give up as much, including Wade Miley, but
they're trying to win now. They're not resting on, well, we've won 3 times in the last 12 years. They are, hey, we're trying to win again, right?
No, but right. But if you're looking at it as a comparison to the Yankees, it's just a different point in the development cycle, right?
Right. They've been bringing in youngsters. You've been getting rid of youngsters, right?
Yes, but what it does right now is in particularly within that White Sox situation, it's just very clear that the Yankees have an upper hand now when it comes to making additions. And it's not unexpected, but it was smart for the Red Sox not to try to match that deal with the White Sox, because you would have truly bankrupted the system or come very close to doing that. At the same time, it's not like if you're a Red Sox fan, you look at it and go, oh, this is good that the Yankees can add these pieces and we can't. You do have to remind yourself that, yes, we already did, but it doesn't kind of defeat the present circumstance of, okay, we just don't have the trade wherewithal that the Yankees do.
He is Evan Drellich. He's one of our favorites to have on. He used to run around with the Houston Astros. He now covers the Boston Red Sox. Everywhere he goes, there's a winner. He is Evan Drellich, Drellich, out on Twitter. And, of course, it's CSN up in New England as well as EEI in the Boston area, where they're going to play some meaningful baseball toward the end of this year. Dude, that's not going to be happening around here. That's pretty obvious. And, you mentioned, and emphasize the Red Sox need third base help. Well, the Orioles have this third baseman that's probably going to get $200 to $300 million out in the open market in 16 months and roll out of here. And then we have the whole unorthodox nature with which my ball club is run here by Mr. Angelos, who didn't make quick decisions when he's 68. Now he's 88. Clearly has 88'd any thoughts of Adam Jones or Manny Machado or Bundy or Gosman being on the trading block. Dude, what's going on here is really typical of, what I wrote and will be presenting next week in the Peter Principles, a book that I've been researching and living here for 25 years on the radio. I finally have put it all into words, how screwed up the organization is. And, they've deodorized the place around here the last 5 years. There's been some winning. There's been some postseason. There's been some relevance. But a lot of this off the backside of Andy McPhail fleecing the Seattle Mariners with the Tillman deal and Adam Jones, and fleecing the Rangers on the Chris Davis deal. And now they've paid Davis. And now Jones is getting toward the end. And now Machado, who feels like he's still in diapers and sometimes acts that way, especially up at Fenway Park, and I know you're familiar with that, he's about to get out of diapers here and, go get himself a real contract. And I don't think the Orioles are going to be the team that does that. They're no good this year. They're not winning anything. There is no pipeline. You talk about bankrupting your minor league. We don't have a minor league system here to bankrupt. You want Chance Sisco? Take him, But other than that, they don't really have anything to deal from, and this could be the year of the fleecing. But then you have the question of Dan Duquette, who tried to leave for Toronto 2 years ago, who is only under contract for another 16 months, like Buck, like Adam Jones, like Machado, like Brock, like Britton. I mean, they have some really big decisions coming up here in the next 2 weeks. And the one thing I know is they're not going to wind up fleecing the Red Sox on a Machado deal, because they wouldn't sell Machado to anybody, let alone to the Red Sox or the Yankees.
Yeah, the Blue Jays media, I did a couple of radio things when the Blue Jays were in town against the Red Sox recently, and the question kept coming up, well, would the Red Sox trade for Donaldson? Would they trade for Machado? And it's like, these in-division deals are very hard to envision getting done, even if a team like the Orioles, like the Blue Jays, was willing to part with the guy. The flip side of that as well, once the guy hits free agency, they can go where they want anyway, and you've got to take the best package you can get. But again, with the Red Sox, it's like they don't have that wherewithal, right? I think reasonably to go out and get such a huge piece like that. And with the Orioles, it is an interesting crossroads to watch from afar. This has been a group and a management team that's been together for a long time. And do you hit a point where you just say, okay, we had a good run, maybe now it's time to try a different mix of things, and certainly Ken Rosenthal's report that they're open for business, that everybody outside of Adam Jones and Manny Machado, all the relief pitchers, can be had, tells you this is trending in a something of a rebuild direction, right?
Well, then why keep Machado? I mean, do you really think you're going to win next year? I mean, like, that's the only reason you would keep him around, unless you really think you're going to be the one that gives him the most money. You're going to be the prettiest girl at the dance. And, oh, by the way, the thing that complicates this more than anything, he really is stunk this year, quite frankly.
Yeah, you don't want to sell low on him, and as you well know. I also don't think that much of baseball would be fooled, I guess, by this year, right? To think that, okay, this is the Machado that you'll get going forward. You know there is a better player in there, but that's probably part of it. The other part of it might just be that, look, if you're another GM, you call up Dan Duquette right now, and you say Manny Machado, I would be surprised to think he's hanging up, right?
No, but Mr. Angelos will hang up. That's the problem here, bro. I mean, Dombrowski doesn't have to run back and say, let me run that by John. And if he does, no one in the world would ever know it. Here, everyone knows that's the case. Everybody's been burned. Every agent's been burned by, it's a 3-year deal. No, it's a 2-year deal. Well, we got to pass the physical. Well, let me check with Mr. Angelos on that. And, that's kind of the screwy part of this, that over 25 years, it's now back out. I mean, some of these fanboy sites have pretended like Angelos doesn't run the place because they're winning. Now, all of a sudden, they're like, you mean Peter's making decisions again? And I'm like, no, Peter was making them the whole time. How the hell do you think Chris Davis got $150 million from here? Because I don't think Buck and Dan would have said, yeah, we need a guy that's going to strike out 220 times a year. We need a pitcher. We need pitching around here. And they gave the money to Davis, and that's really straight from the warehouse, straight from Mr. Angelos. And at the end of the day, the real story is here. He's still kind of running the place. I mean, because I think if this were a flat world like it was in Chicago with Chris Sale, Machado would be on the market. Like, I bet 25 out of 30 general managers would be say, yeah, I'd probably put him on the market. And the 5 that wouldn't would be teams like the Yankees or the Red Sox that would have the money to be able to keep him around, because 20 of the teams in the league can't afford him a year and a half from now, right?
Correct. And I wonder if behind the scenes if an offer was made that was good enough, if Duquette would be able to convince Angelos and say, hey, look, we're getting, like you're saying, we're getting rid of the relievers. Let's do this. This is a good offer. Now, whether they would get that offer or not because of the downturn in performance, I don't know. But, the ownership question, even in Boston, we've seen this because, and really for years, it was no secret that the Larry Lucchino element as team president, how much control did he have versus Theo Epstein? And when Theo left in the gorilla suit and for a time was not the team's GM and then came back because of the power struggle. And then finally, supposedly, once Ben Cherington left, Dave Dombrowski is the guy who has quote unquote autonomy. Now, I got into this debate recently. What does that really mean? You look at the release of Pablo Sandoval. That's an ownership decision, and the Red Sox made very clear that ownership still gets involved. And somebody was making the point that, all right, but we know, Dombrowski said to have autonomy, so now we know where to pin the blame. Well, okay, let's say the Red Sox hadn't released Pablo Sandoval, and we're still playing him because of whatever, because they didn't want to release the money. It was not like they would say, well, John Henry and Tom Warner told us we couldn't release the money. They would say, well, we want to give them another chance. But, this idea that just because an organization says an executive has autonomy, it doesn't mean that autonomy is really there or they're going to publicly express it. Right now that Sandoval's gone, they could say, oh, yeah, ownership was involved. But if he's still here, and even in the time he was still here, Dombrowski admitted after the fact they've been talking about his release for a couple weeks. Okay, so theoretically, maybe there's 2 weeks in there where Dombrowski and John Farrell would have said, get this guy out of here right now, and they had to convince ownership. So, the Angelos situation, I'm sure, is different and worse than others. But even,
it's a little unpredictable to some degree, too. That's the other part of it. That's the hardest part over 25 years is you never know how he woke up out of bed this morning. That's the track record. That's
erraticism, yes.
Yeah, that's the hard part. There is no strategy here, bro. I mean, you know what I mean? Like in Boston, Dombrowski would sit with you or any other member of the media or any member of the organization and say, "This is what we're doing. This is the direction we're going in." Around here, it's a banana republic, quite frankly, because whatever Duquette says, it might be accurate today or tomorrow, or it might be hiding for the owner, and the owner never says anything. I mean, the owner's just been in hiding for about 15 years now.
Yeah, well, and you would know better than me. How long does Angelos have the team? When does that end? Is there a point in time where
every day I wake up hoping it's sooner? But that being said, he's shown no sign. The one thing I will say about him at 88, if he wants to hold Machado because he's like, dude, I'm 88. I watched Illich die earlier this year. I want to win. I've been into this thing for a quarter of a century, and I got nothing to show for it except the $3 billion that I've made off the thing. I want to win. Well, we all want to win. I'm wearing my Orioles shirt right now. I haven't, wanting to win and then having a real strategy on how to do it. It was very ill-conceived this year to come back with this pitching. You must admit that. I mean, this has been a real downer for them having spent so much money. On a financial side, they look all in because they're spending a lot of money all of a sudden, and then you look up and you say, oh, yeah, it's on J.J. Hardy and Chris Davis and Ubaldo Jimenez, right? And Darren O'Day at this point, who they're going to have to give away. I don't think they'll get anything for him with $18 million left on his deal, but, the Red Sox are there are 15 teams who like to have him in their bullpen, I guess, but probably just don't want to pay him $9 million a year to do it.
Yeah, and going into the year, it's the same thing as last year, and probably the same thing as every year. You're right. It's where is the pitching? Everybody looks at last year, but the Orioles, to me, in a very kind of basic summation, were the Blue Jays just a little bit lesser of a hitting team, right? And the Blue Jays honestly ended up having better pitching in the end. But whereas you had three teams that could all mash in the Red Sox, the Blue Jays, and the Orioles, the Orioles were just kind of clearly that third team there because it was so centered on the bats. And Dan Duquette, he's been around longer than most. And, the question I would have is, okay, is he the guy who could rather quickly turn this thing around? Can he do a rebuild or do you need to go get that young, typical Ivy League or whatever analytically minded GM that's kind of the hottest rage in baseball.
Well, Peter could never hire that guy, which is how Duquette wound up here. I mean, no one in baseball would take the job, literally. I mean, famously, he had to go to the Cape Cod League, for a guy who had been sort of exiled for a decade to make it happen. And now Duquette's in the middle of this. And you have to ask yourself, he tried to get out of here 2 years ago, under the cloak of darkness. Angelos wouldn't let him. Now he's 15 months away from escaping. Our question here in Baltimore is he really the guy you want dealing Machado or Britton or Brock at this point? Will he be here when this team's ever competitive again? That's the part that really has us saying, well, where is the strategy? You're letting this guy make the trades who's not going to be here when, the fruit ripens? That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think that Duquette's track record at the major league level, and even beyond, he's not. I don't look at Duquette and go, this guy doesn't know what he's doing, and I wouldn't say that the fact that he wouldn't be here at the end of the things. I look to the Astros and Ed Wade, and he'd started to sell off pieces before he got fired. I mean, maybe you could argue that you're a little less inclined to haggle. Maybe you don't wait out for the absolute best offer. You take the first very good offer that comes along. I could see that, but the idea that Duquette would just kind of say, all right, screw it, here, take him. Yeah, all right, I get 1A prospect. Okay,
but I guess what I'm saying is his evaluation. All things being equal, if he's trying hard, doing his best, doing all the integrity stuff, this organization has not developed pitchers. This organization gave Jake Arrieta away. This organization
to ask for.
This general manager has Gausman and Bundy being asked about by the Colorado Rockies, and I don't. I mean, I wouldn't give either one of those guys up, but this is really an organizational issue over a quarter of a century that they have not developed pitching here ever. And that's worrisome unto itself, that even if you're dealing with organizations and you're bringing in young pitchers, can you develop them? Can you get them to the big leagues? Can you make them 2-3 starters somewhere in your rotation 2 or 3 years from now? I think there's a lot of questions going on here as the Orioles start their tailspin. Much like, I mean, look, you're in Boston now. You know, the light gets pretty hot up there. They were firing Farrell up there in April, right? I mean, for a couple of minutes, right?
Oh, they're firing Farrell every day, yeah.
Well, you know, yeah. Buck gets a hall pass here, and perhaps he should for the last 5 years, but this is starting to smell, and we're getting worried about it, and we don't see a Calvary up there. And, you know, the other thing we see is I look to you in Boston, and you talked about the Yankees really being positioned better. This is a pretty scary proposition for Baltimore, Toronto, and Tampa, that the Red Sox and the Yankees are prospect-laden, talent-heavy, financially rich, you know, all of those things that created 10 years of Yankees-Red Sox seemingly every Sunday night on Sunday Night Baseball, right?
Yeah, if you're the rest of the division, it's just your window, and this idea of a window is an interesting one. But I think it's been. I talked to a lot of GMs about it, and I still haven't written it. It's a story I've been working on for a while, just kind of have in my back pocket. But the way MLB is set up right now with the luxury tax threshold, basically forcing teams to kind of cut back their spending every few years. You know, you create the parity, but the idea of a competitive window starts to become more real. And, you know, whereas in the past, it's just, you know, if you were a big market team, you could just keep spending, or at least maintain a certain level of payroll even. And that would be your path to success as long as your farm system is working. But now you're forced to pare back. If you're a team like the Red Sox, you couldn't, you know, this winter, if the luxury tax threshold wasn't an issue, maybe Edwin Encarnacion this year. Maybe they make other moves, but the money they have, they couldn't spend. So, you know, the system is going to help teams like the Rays and, you know, to less the Orioles and the Blue Jays as well. Certainly they're capable of spending, not like the Red Sox and Yankees are, but they're capable of spending. But yeah, at the same time, you're right. The Red Sox and Yankees they have young cores, and the Red Sox next year, after staying under the luxury tax threshold this year, are going to be able to spend again. So that is frightening and should be frightening for the rest of the division, but particularly as the Yankees as well can also spend.
Always love having you on, man. Enjoy the rest of your summer up there. Eat those little hot dog rolls, split on the top, you know, work in some Fenway Franks and some chowder for me. But there will be no pennant race baseball, sadly, here in the Charm City. We turn our lonely eyes to football. Do they play football up in Boston? Just wondering.
Yeah, sometimes they're deflated, but yes, they do.
Well, around here, we're all waiting for football. Up there, they're waiting for January up there. We're trying to figure out how the Patriots are going to lose 2 or 3 games this year, but we'll continue to work on that into the fall.
Yes, good luck with all that.
Hey, man, great having you on as always. Evan Drellick, one of our favorites, Red Sox insider at Comcast Sportsnet up in New England as well as EEI. Give him a follow out on Twitter at Evan Drellick. That's DRELLICH. Evan, take care of yourself. Stay cool up there, okay?
All right, thanks, Nestor.
Always great to have him on, and always very insightful. Covered the Houston Astros for a number of years as well. Been up in Boston now for a couple of campaigns. Good to have him aboard. You can find me out in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. Peter Angelos back in the news just in time for the Peter Principles. They will be running next week, as will My Dinner with Peter G. Angelos from March of 1997. Very, very interesting to go back and listen. All of that in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault as well. Now up to 9 chapters of the Peter Principles online for your reading and listening pleasure. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. Don't forget the morning newspaper ships to your email inbox each and every morning at 7 a.m. That's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. Britton, Brock, O'Day, Machado, Smith, whoever gets dealt, you'll get it first on the WNST text service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. I'm Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.